Hi, I'm Chris Muchler, Principal Enterprise Architect and VCDX 257 from Virtual Elephant. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to get started with Red Hat OpenShift within your environments. Let's get started. Welcome back to my channel. And as you can see, in 2025, I'm doubling down on running Kubernetes within my environment in a myriad of ways to be able to help each of you understand what platforms are out there that you can leverage to be able to build Kubernetes as a service within your organizations. And in this installment, we are going to dive into Red Hat OpenShift and how you can get it running within your environment relatively quickly. Now, it's been several years since I last used OpenShift. As a matter of fact, it was likely during the pandemic back in 2020 and early 2021 when I was first exposed to Red Hat OpenShift. And I've seen it mature greatly since those early uses of it for my personal use. And as I was able to dive back into it in the last week, I was pleasantly surprised to see how much it's grown from a maturity perspective. Now, I have deployed Red Hat OpenShift as part of my new Kubernetes 4 ways within my home lab environment. And this series is really going to be focusing on how you can build Kubernetes within your environments using a number of tools, including OpenShift, Rancher, Portainer, VKS, as well as just doing it the old school way, leveraging open source and building it yourself. And I've got a great video that I'll link to above where I show you how to deploy Kubernetes from scratch, and I encourage you to leverage that, especially if you're just starting out. Now, as I embarked on this expedition to deploy OpenShift within my environment this last week, I found it relatively easy and simplistic to get it running. As a matter of fact, I had the cluster up and running in less than 2 hours from the time that I started reading the documentation to familiarize myself with the recent changes and how to go about the deployment to actually have a working Kubernetes cluster within my environment. Now, as many of you know from previous videos, I'm running VCF or VMware Cloud Foundation within my home lab. And so I was going to be deploying OpenShift on top of a series of virtual machines. And you can see here on the screen that I've already deployed 5 virtual machines that I'm going to be leveraging the build of OpenShift on. So you can see that we have Master 0, Master 1, Master 2, as well as Worker 0 and Worker 1. Now, one of the things that OpenShift has you do is when you go through the hybrid cloud portal, it actually helps you create an ISO file that you download and then attach to these virtual machines to be able to have it run and log itself into the Red Hat OpenShift hybrid cloud portal where you're actually deploying and performing the installation from. So the first thing that I had to do after downloading that ISO file from the portal was to go ahead and attach it into each one of these virtual machines. So you can see here on the screen that I've done that at this point. So as you see each one of these virtual machines powering on, you can see that they're each configured with 8 vCPUs and 16 gigs of memory, as well as 160 gigabytes of disk. Now, this is according to the recommendations in the Red Hat documentation, and I made sure that I followed that documentation as closely as possible to avoid any issues with this first deployment. And I was pleasantly surprised at how well their documentation helped me through this first process of building this first cluster. So once these machines came online, I got back into the hybrid cloud console, which you see here on the screen, and we're waiting for these virtual machines, essentially, or these machines to eventually register themselves within this cluster that I'm going to be creating. So you can see here that they each start to come up, that they have a role that you can choose. You can either leave it as auto assign, you can choose to assign it to control plane or to a worker node, and then the status. And we're waiting for the status to go green and for all 5 of these virtual machines to appear. So we can see here now that all 5 of the virtual machines appear in the Red Hat Hybrid Cloud Console for this. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to quickly assign the nodes to their appropriate role. Now, having not done this in a while, I didn't want to risk the auto assignment to create those appropriate roles. So I just went ahead and did this for myself. So quickly adding 2 workers and the 3 control planes, this was going to let me get to the next step. Now you can see here that it still says insufficient. And so it's actually complaining about an advanced setting that I had not yet enabled on the virtual machines. And I had forgotten about this advanced setting from 4 years ago when I was doing this originally. So I quickly turn off one of the worker nodes and I go into the advanced settings once it's powered off, and I add the disk UUID variable that we need to have on these virtual machines. So if you're doing OpenShift on top of a VCF or vSphere environment, you're going to want to make sure that you've included this disk.enable UUID and set it to true on the advanced settings. And then once you do that, then you'll be able to go back. We'll go back to the cloud consoles here after restarting that virtual machine, and we'll see the status move away from insufficient and be ready for deployment. So we're going to go ahead and you'll see on the screen here that I validate that that first worker comes up with the correct status in the console before going and adding that advanced setting on the rest of the virtual machines. So after powering on each of the virtual machines, we're seeing their ready status be reflected in the hybrid cloud console. So once it's finished for all 5, then we're going to go on to the next step of the process. Now, one of the things that I will say is that the documentation does tell you how to build an HA proxy load balancer to be leveraged for this cluster. And so I had done that previously, leveraging a CentOS VM, just loading HA proxy and then quickly exporting port 6443, port 80, and port 443 according to the documentation that Red Hat had, as well as creating static DHCP entries because each one of these virtual machines is sitting behind an NSXT segment to make sure that there were static bindings, and then leveraging all of the information. So you can see here we specify an API IP as well as an interface IP. Once we've done that, we can see the reflection of the cluster itself, and then we can go ahead here. Once we've confirmed that everything is set up the way we expect it to be set up, we can go ahead and click on Install Cluster. So now this installation is going to be proceeding on those 5 virtual machines that we set up. Okay, and then we're going to watch this status bar kind of go across as we watch the status of each of the hosts here in this drop-down menu for host inventory. And you can see it's in this preparing for installation stage right now. And then we go ahead and we'll watch this. And I've really kind of cut this down and sped it up because it was really just watching this run in my environment. This took about 50 minutes for it to complete, which all things considered is not terrible. It'd be nice if it was a little bit faster, but this is probably more a matter of how much available resources and the speed of my storage and network that I have within my environment. So of course, your mileage may vary when you are building out your OpenShift inside of your environments. So don't let that deter you, the 50 minutes. But like I said, all things considered, it basically just ran at this point. And then once it finished, I was able to download here from this webpage, the kubeconfig file, and then also be able to directly get into the UI interface on my local network for the cluster. And it puts a URL right here on the screen for you once the installation is complete. So while I have in the small window here on the screen the actual installation going, I'm showing you now on the screen the actual cluster once it was up and running. And so here you can see the portal. It's on my local network console, OpenShift console.apps.ocp4.virtualelephant.com. So this is running inside of my home environment. And I will be honest, this is one of the things that I like the most about OpenShift compared to some of the other platforms out there for building Kubernetes in a variety of environments, whether they be on-prem in your own data center or out any public cloud environment. This UI is really robust and you're getting it out of the box. So really when we think about OpenShift, I don't really think about it as Kubernetes as a service, but I think more about it being a Kubernetes platform as a service. So it has a lot of the other things built into it natively that I've had to do in the past. So if you remember, one of the things that I love the most is I love the Cilium CNI. And one of the things that I like to build on top of Cilium are Grafana and Prometheus, as well as Hubble and the UI for those things, and being able to have, by leveraging the Cilium YAML file for Grafana and Prometheus, being able to have several built-in dashboards that are automatically available to me once I have that running within the cluster. OpenShift is doing a lot of that for you automatically. So as we look here on the screen and we come down here to observe, okay, and we can go to dashboards, right? And so you can see here, this is a drop down for the dashboards that they have. And there is a slew of them available to you right out of the box once you have OpenShift running in your cluster. And like I said, I believe that this is one of those differentiators and really shows the maturity of Red Hat OpenShift as a Kubernetes platform. So like, for example, if we come down here and we go to Kubernetes and the compute resources cluster, okay, this is a dashboard for the cluster now that you're seeing here on the screen. So we're getting a nice dashboard, a really high level overview of what we've got going on in the environment, CPU, the quota, if anything specified, memory usage statistics, memory requests, current network usage, bandwidth, both receive and transmit. Like I said, it's very robust in what you're getting here. And this is all out of the box. This does not require you as the operator or as the architect to really go and do anything extra to be able to immediately offer this out to your end users when you build them a Kubernetes cluster. So again, right, some really great things built into this. We could look at the different pods and so forth. It's going to show us all of, a little bit of a drill down into some of this information. So again, this is one of those things that I think sets Red Hat OpenShift apart from even Rancher that's out there today, which is one of my other, in the past, has been Rancher is one of my favorite ways to deploy Kubernetes. So here we can see, that there's this alerting tab. Now I've not yet gone in. This is still a bare bones Kubernetes cluster that OpenShift deployed for us. I haven't done anything else. And actually, I'm going to be going through in the very next video where I'm going to be showing you, okay, how I've taken this Kubernetes cluster from OpenShift, how I've added any additional packages that I need, and then deployed Project Signal Wave on top of it. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out this link at the top of the screen for my Project Signal Wave so you can see what a microservices demo application looks like inside of Kubernetes, and something that you can take and run within your environments as you're trying to learn more about Kubernetes and building up Kubernetes platforms within your organizations. So you can see here, I've not yet configured the alert manager where it's supposed to send the alerts, but just that the fact that it has all of these alerts built into it already for me. Again, this is one of those things that sets apart Red Hat OpenShift from a maturity perspective. And certainly we can come back here to the overview, right? This is kind of your initial view of the cluster. You can see that it's telling me some invalid credentials for something, that it's got some alert manager stuff going on, again, because we haven't configured the alerts. I've got a little bit of a dashboard just right here, a quick overview of the cluster utilization, and then we can see recent events. Now, the other thing that I really love about OpenShift, and this is one of the things that Rancher does as well, is the operators. So we can come over here to the OperatorHub, and you can see these are a myriad of packages and applications that Red Hat is curated for you to be able to deploy automatically inside of the cluster. Okay, so it's got one of the things that I noticed first off is if we go to NFS, it has the very same NFS provisioner operator that I've been deploying manually within my Cilium cluster for my Project Signal Wave, and it has it right here out of the box. And so you'll be able to go ahead and install a lot of different things within this environment via a click of a button or a few clicks of a button. So like I said, in the next video, I'm going to show you how I leverage the OperatorHub to actually finish out building this cluster and then deploying Project Signal Wave within it. But thus far, I'm really enjoying playing with Red Hat OpenShift. Once again, I think it's a great way to be able to deploy Kubernetes within an environment. Bare metal, on top of vSphere, IBM, one of the other many options that you have that Red Hat supports today. And I encourage you, especially if you're learning about Kubernetes and trying to become more of a subject matter expert, that you look at all of the different options that are out there, including Rancher, including OpenShift, including VKS, doing it yourself, right? These are ways that you're going to be able to familiarize yourself with it and really get excellent and get your skills up to speed in 2025 with Kubernetes so that you can be of great service to your organizations. And that's really what my Kubernetes 4-way project is really all about, is demonstrating to all of you out there watching these videos what you could do and how you can be leveraging Kubernetes in a myriad of ways within your environment so that you can make the best choice based off of your business requirements and your technical requirements for yourself or for your organizations. If you're enjoying this content, please subscribe to the Virtual Elephant YouTube channel. Turn on notifications and hit the like button. And please include a comment below and let me know what you would like to see out of my Kubernetes 4-way project and how I can be of service to you. As always, feel free to reach out to me on X at Chris Mutchler and find me on LinkedIn. And I look forward to talking to you next time.